Hey everyone, welcome to the channel, Tech with KG. Today we're going to be checking out the Samsung Q90T of last year up against the A90J from Sony from this year. The Sony A90J is probably the best TV this year, and it is an OLED TV. The TV from last year is the Q90T that is my personal set, and it is a QLED TV, which is just an LCD TV with a quantum dot layer. So putting these two TVs up against each other, we're basically getting OLED versus QLED. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is just because I personally wanted to see it, and I figured if I'm going to do it anyway, I might as well film it. And a lot of you guys actually requested this video as well, so here you go. And I want to say straight up, yes, this is not a fair fight. One is a 65-inch QLED and the other is a 55-inch OLED. So yeah, not the fairest fight in the world, but you guys still wanted to see the comparison, and I can actually point out a lot of differences still, even though it's not going to be completely fair. That said, despite the size differences, you'll still see the same characteristics of the TVs come out, even if they were the same size. So don't look too much at the size. Instead, try to listen to more of what I'm saying about the two TVs when they are side by side. The way this video will be laid out is I will have instances where I'm talking about the scenes side by side and explaining the differences, and I'll also have times where it'll just be footage of those two TVs side by side playing. And I'm just going to be talking in general about the core differences of the TVs and their strengths and weaknesses. So just keep that in mind. So before we get into the comparison, I'd like to thank my sponsor for today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators to learn new skills and deepen existing passions. You can take classes on how to film, how to edit videos, and even how to make cool graphics for your thumbnails. It's a great way to learn something that you've always wanted to learn. Personally, I'm taking a class from MKBHD himself on filming and editing YouTube videos so that I can get better at this craft myself. I never thought I'd be able to learn tips from MKBHD, which is somebody that I consider a big inspiration with tech videos. So one of the best things about Skillshare is that there's no ads and they always keep updating with new premium classes. And right now, you can get a free 1-month trial for the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description below. Thanks again to my sponsor Skillshare, and thank you to you for hearing that out. Let's keep going with this side by side, shall we? So having these two TVs side by side, you will notice that the QLED is just extremely bright in daytime sequences, and in these circumstances, you definitely have a way brighter TV when it is side by side. Now this is the strength of the QLED shining through, and for bright games like this seen in Sea of Thieves, you are definitely noticing a huge difference. Don't get me wrong, the A90J looks really great and it presents this very well, but in comparison to what the QLED is doing, it's just not even close. There's more shadow detail on the A90J, there's no doubt about it, but for this scene to come alive, it really does just impress me so much on the QLED. When you get to a scene like this and you're seeing the sun going down, you will notice that on the QLED, it is very bright and it does look very good, but also on the A90J, it just has more depth to it. It's more of a sense of warmth to the picture, and I really love the way it looks on the A90J when it is side by side. They look spectacular, both of them do, but just the amount of depth that we're seeing in the picture, very smooth on the OLED. I love the way this looks on the A90J in comparison to the QLED. And so this next scene is a good example of how they do night scenes differently. So on the OLED, you're definitely going to get that complete black look in the night sky. It's perfect looking. The way that the stars shine through is really spectacular to see in person, and it is a sight to behold for sure. Now you can see that on the QLED, we definitely have a brighter picture, but overall, it just doesn't feel or capture the same kind of atmosphere as you would like from a nighttime scene. It definitely does it a different way, and some people might appreciate the way the night sky looks, but for me, I feel like it's not dark enough and I'm not getting that atmosphere that I would hoped for from this scene. Moving on, we're going into the building for Sea of Thieves here, and I just want you to look at the difference here on how bright it is and how lit up it is on the Q90T in comparison to the A90J, which is more realistic to me. When you walk into a room, you definitely get that feeling that you are in a environment that is dimly lit, but still you have the right brightness coming from the right areas. Instead of lighting up the whole screen like it does on the Q90T, you only see the light sources coming from the light sources on the OLED, if that makes sense. So I really think that for indoor environments like this, the A90J outshines any sort of QLED that you can put up against it for sure, just because of this. And it's not just going to be the A90J that does this, it's pretty much any OLED that goes up against a QLED in this sort of circumstance is going to have the advantage for indoor environments. To me, it is just a more preferable look. The A90J has it nailed down on what I would expect this scene to look like. So I give the edge big time, to OLED in this sort of circumstance. And there's no beating it. And I think this is why a lot of people love what OLED does, because the QLED really struggles with scenes like this. And you'll see things over brightened to kind of get the picture level to be where it's at. When it comes down to scenes with a lot of color involved, you see these two TVs side by side, I was actually pretty impressed with how the Q90T went up against the A90J in terms of color when it was on intelligent mode. This is one thing that actually shocked me, that color came close to matching the A90J in a lot of scenes. Now, there's circumstances where when it wasn't in intelligent mode and they're both in movie mode, we definitely have an advantage going to the A90J for more realistic looking colors. And then the Samsung definitely will have more of that artificial saturated look to it. Now, love it or hate it, some people love that look, but I'm just sort of noticing these details. Like, for example, if you look at this crab right here, and sorry to all the crab fans in advance, but this is a boiling crab, and you can see that it is definitely a little bit too red, and it looks kind of fake on the Samsung, but on the A90J it definitely looks more of a realistic tone for that crab. So that's something that you'll notice right away if you had these two TVs side by side. If you're not having the two TVs side by side, and you're like sensitive to that saturated color look, you're definitely going to want to tweak that setting on the Samsung for sure if you end up owning a Samsung QLED. Now, those who love this realistic look, and they'll be fine with the A90J, there's no doubt about it. But if you like that saturated look and you have an A90J or you have an A80J and you just wanted to add a bit more color to it, there is a live color setting on the Sony TV, and it works spectacularly to add in more of that vibrant, saturated color that Samsung and LG is kind of known for pushing. Another thing that really jumps out at you when you're looking at these two TVs side by side is the picture clarity of the A90J versus the Q90T. And this is because of the XR processor. This processor is absolutely insane on what it is doing, and has been one of the most impressive things that I've seen this year in terms of processor. No matter what TV you put it up against, it definitely will have the clarity advantage, and it looks sharp without feeling over sharp at times. And I don't know how they do it, but it just looks really, really great. They nailed the clarity aspect 100%. And you notice it no matter what TV it is next to. If we take a look at this scene, we have a lot of OLED demos and a lot of kind of demos with that make OLED kind of the supreme victor, so to speak, when you see it. So these demos are definitely designed to look great on OLEDs, but I was surprised at how well the Samsung Q90T still holds up against an OLED. there is aspects where you do see blooming, there's no doubt about it, but the Samsung dimming algorithm does a really great job of keeping blooming to a minimal aspect. So you will rarely see blooming. If you do see it, it is definitely going to be on these OLED demos or loading screens of games. It was very impressive. I thought that I would be missing the black levels coming from an OLED, but turns out I really didn't miss the black levels all that much, and I was pretty happy with the Q90T's black levels. So that still holds true today. It's really hard to find extreme examples of blooming. If you look closely, there is blooming, but it does a really good job of keeping it to a minimum. I would say by far the biggest example that OLED has over QLED when it is side by side is that level of shadow detail that you get with OLED is unmatchable right now in terms of how to reproduce it on an LCD. It's just not possible. Even when I looked at the Neo QLED side by side, it never matched that same shadow detail. And what I'm saying is, like, if you look really closely at the darker areas of the screen or just textures in general, you will see that there's just a sense of depth to it. It's very, very satisfying to look at, and it just makes things look a little bit more realistic and just have that feel to it. I think it's something that you definitely have to see for yourself, and hopefully you can see it in the video examples. Now, on the flip side, when it comes to highlight detail and really bright specular highlights, that bright HDR, pretty much HDR like it's meant to be seen, you will not be able to come close to beating an LCD TV that is very bright. The way it displays the specular highlights and the way it can get bright and have a whole scene brightness where it doesn't trigger ABL is what makes a LCD TV shine at its strength. So definitely there's pros and there's cons to both TVs. That's kind of what I want to do with these videos. I want to show you that I'm pointing out both TV's strengths and weaknesses to help you make a better decision on what you want to buy for your home. All right, in this next example, we see a skyline of Las Vegas in the daytime. And in the background, if you look at the clouds, you'll see that they're a little bit more faint on the OLED and on the LCD. They really pop and they really come through, and it's very bright looking. Also, if you look at the way that the mountains are in the background, you're getting more of a desert type feeling from the mountains on the LCD TV, while on the OLED, you're not seeing that color as much come through. So I thought that was really interesting how these two TVs present this image. Also, it does feel like the clarity on the LCD is better overall than on the OLED, shockingly enough. So this example, I definitely like the way it looks on the LCD outside of the greenery, where I think it could have a little bit more color tone to it. So I thought that was really interesting. And I really like looking at still images of videos side by side because I can really dive in and break down these examples. You know, this might be something that I regularly just throw up sometimes and we just discuss differences, because if I'm being completely honest with you, I really enjoy talking about this stuff and kind of breaking down the side by side videos. So if that's something you'd be interested in, let me know in the comments, and maybe we could start like a series that I can do like maybe every month or so, where we kind of break down two different side by side images, because I have hours, and I mean like hours, and just a whole hard drive full of footage of TVs that I put side by side. I wouldn't mind going through and revisiting some of these TVs side by side. If you guys are buying anything at all on Amazon, make sure you click the affiliate links in the description below. You do not have to buy the product that is linked. You just have to buy anything at all, and it'll go towards supporting the channel. So thank you so much if you are doing that. For more comparisons, make sure you click the playlist at the end of the video, where I'll have a bunch of comparisons between OLED versus QLED or OLED versus OLED. I've made plenty of videos so far for you guys to check out if you haven't already seen them and you want to see more. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and have a great day. I hope I see you guys in the next one.